In 1941, Wonder Woman made her first appearance in All-Star Comics. The description on the first page, next to a picture of the flying Superwoman, reads, "At last, in a world torn by the hatreds and wars of men, appears a woman to whom the problems of men are mere child's play. With 100 times the agility and strength of our best male athletes and strongest wrestlers, she appears as though from nowhere to avenge an injustice or right a wrong." The character of Wonder Woman was created by William Marston, who recognized the lack of strong female figures in the comic book world. She has since come to be known as the world's premier female superhero, fighting for justice, love, peace, and especially gender equality in a world dominated by male characters. To many, she has become a feminist icon and also differs from many superheroes in the deep compassion that she shows to the suffering, often championing their causes instead of solely fighting crime. Since her debut, Wonder Woman has faced a variety of foes, beginning with Nazis and supervillains, but the greatest challenge to her credibility has not come from aliens or super scientists. It has come from her objectification. Wonder Woman's advocates and most dedicated writers have acknowledged that there is a constant struggle between her being considered a sex symbol more than a dedicated civil servant. This process of undermining the strength of a female figure of empowerment to serve the purpose of male desire diminishes the true power that Wonder Woman holds for our culture. To men and women alike, a figure like Wonder Woman, who proves an equally strong and formidable opponent to injustice and evil in the world as any male superhero, reinforces the idea of equality into our minds. And it is here we find a common narrative with the wise woman from our reading in Proverbs. In many ways, her journey has been similar to that of Wonder Woman. This text was recently explained to me and reinforced by others as a measuring stick by which many men will use against their wives. They will proof text lines from this passage and create harmful expectations of their wives' performance. This does violence to the women and betrays the mutual fulfillment that comes in a marital relationship. It also harms the original context and intention of the text. You see, when a text is used this way, it pushes us away from its beauty and truth, away from understanding the way it functioned originally, and could be used as an example of strong women spearheading in society. As Ben touched on last week, Proverbs was a collection of cultural meaning. It functioned as a way for Jews who had moved out into more Hellenized regions to hold on to beliefs and behaviors that were meaningful to them. They were taught to their young ones and were used as a way to keep track of their Jewish identity. This is important to keep in mind, as the equality with which this wise woman is expected to be treated is starkly different than how the Greeks governed their gender politics. So we heard last week from the ethereal ideal of a cosmic wisdom, but this week we meet her physical embodiment. And it's important to note that gender. In the Old Testament, we see predominantly male characters, with women only taking supporting roles. Yet in this text, we have a woman presented as the keystone figure of Proverbs. This passage is the climax of the book, and as the keystone figure, she ties together the tenets presented through the entire book. She is more than a man's wife. She is more than a proof-texted weapon used by modern men to create a ridiculous, curated standard that perpetuates inequality and misogyny in the home. This woman is the ideal citizen, male or female, but she is a Wonder Woman. I'm going to quote Ellen Davis, Old Testament professor at Duke Divinity School, in her translation of the first line and what it says. "Whoever finds a valorous wife knows her value is beyond jewels." From the beginning, we are told that this woman is priceless, valued beyond jewels, beyond any material thing on earth for the person that she is. We are walked through her characteristics. She is an entrepreneur, she is self-reliant, she is strong, she is philanthropic, she is a wise teacher. There is significance in how Jews at the time differed from the Greeks. The first is how they understood their place in economics. Some of the larger Hellenized cities that Jews had emigrated to were consumer-based societies. There was lots of travel and trade in these larger cities, but the Jewish people held on to a role as producers. And we see that exemplified in the characteristics of the wise woman in Proverbs. She makes her goods by hand and knows their value. In the verse about her giving task to her handmaidens, the Hebrew word for task is a word used almost exclusively in economics and politics. So we know that she is not only selling things, but is also participating in local governance of the area and empowering the young women that work with her to do the same. The Jewish culture also differed in that they believed women capable of all these things. In this time period, the Greco-Roman philosophy believed that humans functioned in a mind-body dualism. Either you were subject to the body, or you rose to the mind. Men were the superior gender and could rise to the realm of the mind that women could not. Because we know that they believed this, we see a stark contrast with both the figurative female wisdom seen in early Proverbs and the personified wisdom from our reading today. We can look at the opening passage from last week's readings. Wisdom cries out in the street, in the squares she raises her voices, at the busiest corner she cries out, at the entrance of the city gates she speaks. A large gap between Roman women not being able to speak in public. And this is important because the city gate was where issues of business and law were settled by the community. Trials and hearings were held there, so only the most wise and trusted could govern in these situations. Trusted members of the community gathered, and it is here that we are told women like this are to be praised. In the heart of community function, in the seat of governance, wise women are to be lifted up for their contributions. We also know that these values attributed to women held their prominence in the time of the letter of James. What's described is the wise woman. James says, "Who is wise and understanding among you? Show by your good life that your works are done with gentleness born of wisdom. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without a trace of partiality or hypocrisy, and a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace for those who make peace." But unfortunately, we have evidence in this letter and others that Christianity had become subject to the mind-body dualism of the Greco-Roman culture. These characteristics have been taken out of the capable hands of women and placed into a more general, good-natured person. There are also other passages that preach subservience of women to men, yet in our passage from Proverbs, the only actions that the man has towards his wife is receiving great gain from her hard work and his offering of praise for her. Neither of these suggest subservience or a patriarchal dynamic, but we know that came to be prominent throughout the history of the church. This woman serves tirelessly, and this idea might be at the heart of the misogynist interpretation. She serves and serves. She serves her community, her family, and her faith. She serves in such a heightened way that I felt comfortable drawing a comparison between her and Wonder Woman. These women are both to be upheld for their superhuman ability to work and work against just injustice and inequality. To give of themselves in such a selfless manner that the only fitting thing to do is to praise them. Yet that's not what we have done. We have turned Wonder Woman into just a body to be stared at, separating her from the inspiring image that she is to young women who see little representation in the imaginative and unlimited world of comic books. Taking away a beacon of powerful femininity to all people. She is often a second thought, a sidekick to more prominent male figures, or serving as a romantic plot device when necessary. She is far removed from her potential and ability to help young women of today find a positive role model in a male-dominated segment of popular culture. And the woman of wisdom has suffered as well. Her identity has been sheared away from a strong and selfless being into only verses that serve as fodder for patriarchy and female subservience in the home. Where she once stood as the motor that kept the economy and home moving, she has become subservient to a fault, subject to an unloving form of domestic oppression that neither values her abilities nor seeks her fulfillment. But we can't let go of this idea of service. Jesus tells us today that whoever wants to be the first of all must be the servant of all. He also leads by example when he says in other Gospels that he did not come to lead, but to serve. So our task is to reclaim this idea of service and renegotiate who the receiving party is. Ultimately, we can all agree God is who we should be subservient to. But this word, subservient, and its place as a Christian virtue becomes most troublesome when it is commandeered. We have gone over 2 instances of how that has happened, but there are many, many more. And their ranks are included in those who can benefit from the endeavor to redirect our service to God. Obedience and subservience, when done with the intention to serve God's people in the world, will fulfill all those involved. When only worldly masters are served, there is oppression and degradation. And we hear from Jesus that whoever welcomes a child welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the Father who sent me. And we as Episcopalians should be very familiar with this word welcome. It's on our signs, it's on our marketing. But I ask, is it just a passive, we have an open seat for you here? Or is it we want you to be able to be the person God created you to be in our midst? I propose and hope that it is the second. I believe that we can take figures who have been appropriated by malevolent forces like the woman of wisdom and Wonder Woman and embrace them in a way where they reach the potential of their inception. Their service, bravery, kindness, compassion, and action are embraced instead of their bodies and roles being their qualifying traits. This is the welcome that all deserve as children of God. And this is the welcome that we at St. Francis can provide to the people of this world who have suffered the same in their lives. We can welcome people into our midst who have been used or objectified, to have been held to standards that may be unreachable. We can welcome people into our midst who feel like the least of these, and turn their experience in the world around. They can be loved for who God made them to be and who they are trying to be for the world. What they have to give to the world is what we will praise them for at the city gates. It is there that the world will know that they are to be called happy and receive the fruits of the work that they do. We will welcome them all and love them for their giving, because when we welcome them, we welcome Christ and God, and because we know that they are precious beyond jewels.